The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room Ambassador Lee had ever seen. It stretched upward like a cathedral made of starlight, with seats carved into the walls in great spiraling rows. Thousands of alien representatives sat in those seats, watching him with eyes of every shape and color. Some had no eyes at all. Stood alone on a small platform in the center. He wore a simple gray suit. His hands were steady at his sides. He had practiced this moment for months, but nothing could have prepared him for the feeling of being so small. High Arbiter sat at the highest point of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. His species, had ruled the council for 3,000 years. They believed themselves to be the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Looking at them now, understood why. "You may speak human," said. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through a canyon. Took a breath. "Thank you, High Arbiter. I come before this council on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. We request that humanity be granted protected status under galactic law." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Protected status was given to species that could not defend themselves. It was a mark of weakness, but also of safety. No member of the council could attack a protected species without facing punishment from all the others. Leaned forward. "Protected status. This is unusual. Most species come to us seeking recognition as equals, not as dependents." "We seek peace," said simply, "nothing more." Peace seemed to taste the word. "Tell me, Ambassador, why should the council grant protection to your kind? What threat do you face?" "The galaxy is vast," replied. "We are new to it. We have no great fleet. We have no powerful weapons. We wish only to explore, to trade, and to live in harmony with our neighbors." Nodded slowly. Then he gestured to one of his aides. "I have taken the liberty of studying your species, Ambassador. Your broadcasts, your history, your culture. I found it most educational." A holographic screen flickered to life above the chamber. Felt his stomach tighten. The screen showed footage from Earth. Anti-war protests in major cities. Millions of people marching with signs that read "No more war and peace now." Veterans crying as they spoke about the horrors they had witnessed. Memorials covered in flowers. Children singing songs about peace. The aliens in the chamber watched with growing amusement. "Your species holds ceremonies to mourn your dead," observed. "You build monuments to remember those lost in battle. You teach your young that war is evil. You punish those who speak in favor of conflict." More footage played. World leaders signing peace treaties. Soldiers returning home and weeping in the arms of their families. Documentary films showing the destruction of ancient wars. "You even created weapons capable of destroying your entire planet," continued. "And then you agreed never to use them. You were so frightened of your own power that you chose to limit yourselves." Laughter began to spread through the chamber. It was not cruel laughter, not exactly. It was the laughter of adults watching a child try to act brave. Raised a hand for silence. "Ambassador Lee, I mean no disrespect, but surely you can see what this tells us about your kind." Kept his face calm. "What does it tell you, High Arbiter?" "That humans fear war," declared. "That you are psychologically fragile. That even minor conflicts leave you traumatized for generations. You are not a threat to anyone. You are, if anything, the opposite of a threat." The chamber erupted in agreement. Delegates nodded and spoke among themselves. Some looked at with something like pity. In the far corner of the chamber, an old alien named Counselor remained silent. She was small and gray, with deep wrinkles around her large eyes. Her species had encountered humans once, long ago, during the early days of Earth's space exploration. She remembered things that the others did not. But she said nothing, not yet. Smiled at. It was not an unkind smile, but it was the smile of someone looking down at a lesser being. "Your request for protected status is noted, Ambassador. The Council will discuss it. but I must tell you honestly, I see no reason to grant it." "And why is that?" asked. "Because protection is given to those in danger. You are not in danger, you are simply harmless." Paused. "Go home, ambassador. Live your peaceful lives. Build your monuments and sing your songs. The galaxy has no interest in your little worlds." The laughter returned, louder this time. Waited for it to die down. When the chamber was quiet again, he spoke. "High Arbiter, members of the Council, I will accept your decision, whatever it may be, but I must say one thing before I leave." Waved a hand. "Speak." "You are correct that we fear war. We fear it more than you could possibly understand. We have ceremonies for our dead because we remember every single one of them. We build monuments because we never want to forget the cost. We teach our children that war is evil because we have seen that evil firsthand in ways that would break your minds." The chamber grew quiet. Something in his voice had changed. "We did not become peaceful because we are weak," he continued. "We became peaceful because we learned what we are capable of. We saw the darkness inside ourselves, and we chose to turn away from it. Every treaty, every law, every memorial is a chain we built to hold that darkness back." He looked directly at. "I pray that you never learn why we are so afraid. I pray that you never see what happens when those chains are broken." For a moment there was absolute silence. Then laughed. "A fine speech, ambassador. Very dramatic, but speeches do not win wars. Strength wins wars. And your species has made it very clear that you have no stomach for strength." The council joined in the laughter once more. Bowed his head respectfully. "Then I have nothing more to say. Thank you for your time." He turned and walked out of the chamber. Counselor watched him go. She did not laugh. She had seen the look in the human's eyes. It was not the look of a coward. It was the look of someone carrying a terrible burden, a secret so heavy that it bent his shoulders. She had seen that look before in her own people many centuries ago, before the Great War that had almost destroyed them. She wanted to say something too, she wanted to warn him, but she knew he would not listen. They were too proud, too certain of their own superiority. So she said nothing, and the moment passed. Far away on the edge of council space, Warlord of the Empire received a report. He was a massive creature, covered in armored scales, with 4 arms and a face built for war. His species had conquered 30 worlds in the last 2 centuries. They lived for battle. The report told him about the humans, a young species, rich planets, weak defenses, and according to the Galactic Council, they were cowards who feared war more than death. Smiled, his teeth were like knives. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "I have found our next conquest." His officers bowed and hurried to obey. In the darkness between stars, the engines of war began to wake. And on Earth, Ambassador Lee returned home with a heavy heart. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to explain, but they had not listened. He hoped with every fiber of his being that they would never have to learn the truth. But deep down, he knew they would. They always did. The colony was a quiet place. It sat on a green world at the edge of human space, far from the busy trade routes and crowded stations of the inner systems. 200,000 people lived there, mostly farmers and their families. They grew food that was shipped across a dozen worlds. They raised children. They lived simple lives. Sargent had been stationed there for 6 months. It was supposed to be an easy assignment, a reward for years of hard service. She spent her days training a small militia of local volunteers and her nights watching the stars from her small apartment. She was watching those stars when the alarms began to scream. The fleet appeared without warning. 50 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and surrounded the planet like wolves circling a wounded deer. Their hulls were black and covered in spikes. Their weapons glowed with the promise of destruction. Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the green world below. His intelligence officers had told him what to expect: A few thousand humans. No military ships. No heavy weapons. This would not even be a battle. It would be a demonstration. He opened a communication channel. Humans of this colony, I am warlord of the Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender. Lay down your weapons. Open your gates. Give us your resources and your people, and some of you may live. Resist and you will all die. He closed the channel and waited. In the colony's command center, listened to the message with the other militia leaders. There were only 3,000 of them. Farmers, mechanics, teachers, good people who had volunteered to protect their neighbors. None of them were real soldiers. The colony's governor, an old woman named Han, looked at them with tired eyes. What do we do? Some wanted to surrender. They had families, children. They did not want to die for nothing. Understood their fear. She felt it too, but she also knew something that they did not. If we surrender, she said, they will take everything, our food, our technology, our people. The do not keep slaves, they eat them. The room went silent. I have read the reports, continued. Every world they have conquered, every species they have defeated. They do not show mercy. Surrender means death. The only difference is how long we suffer first. Governor Han closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was steel in her gaze. Then we fight. The hour passed. No surrender came. Was surprised but not worried. He gave the order, and his ground forces began to descend. 20,000 warriors landed outside the colony. They were huge creatures, each one standing 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like armor. They carried weapons that could punch through steel. They had never lost a war. They expected the battle to last minutes. It lasted 6 days. Had spent those precious hours preparing. She evacuated the civilians to underground bunkers that had been built decades ago, designed for exactly this kind of emergency. She positioned her militia at choke points throughout the colony. She turned civilian vehicles into mobile weapons platforms. She set traps using farming equipment and mining explosives. And when they came, her people were waiting. The first wave hit the eastern gate. 2,000 warriors charged forward, expecting the gates to fall immediately. Instead, they walked into a killing field. Hidden guns opened fire from every direction. Mines exploded beneath their feet. Buildings collapsed on top of them. 400 died in the first hour. Watched from orbit with growing frustration. He sent more troops. They died too. The humans refused to break. Every street became a battlefield. Every building became a fortress. Farmers who had never held a weapon fought with the fury of cornered animals. Led from the front. She was everywhere at once, directing fire, organizing retreats, dragging wounded soldiers to safety. When they breached the hospital, she led a counterattack that drove them back. When they surrounded the school, she personally killed 7 of them to open an escape route for the children. On the 3rd day, they captured the water treatment plant, gathered 200 volunteers for a night raid. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, using tunnels and maintenance passages that they did not know existed. They reached the plant at midnight and attacked with everything they had. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters combat with enemies twice their size. Lost half her team. She took a wound to her leg that would leave her limping for the rest of her life. But when the sun rose, the plant was back in human hands, and a supply depot lay in ruins. By the 5th day, they had suffered 40,000 casualties. 40,000 against 3,000 militia fighters. Could not believe the reports. His officers assured him that victory was certain. The humans were running out of ammunition. Their defenses were crumbling, but every time they pressed forward, they paid in blood. On the 6th day, the evacuation ships arrived. Admiral had received the distress call from Colony 5 days earlier. He had gathered every ship he could find and pushed his engines beyond their limits to reach them in time. His fleet was small, only 30 ships, but it was enough. The human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel directly between the fleet and the planet. They were smaller than the vessels, sleeker, with clean lines and weapons that glowed blue in the darkness of space. Ordered his ships to intercept. He still believed this would be easy. He still believed humans were cowards. The battle lasted 40 minutes. Admiral did not fight like the expected. He did not charge into their formation. He did not try to match their firepower. Instead, his ships danced through space like birds avoiding a storm. They struck at weak points and retreated before the enemy could respond. They used asteroids as cover and turned their own weapons against them. When it was over, 12 ships were destroyed and the rest were limping away. Admiral had lost only 2 vessels. But he did not pursue. Instead, he opened a channel to the enemy fleet. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Fleet. Your attack on our colony has failed. Your ground forces are surrounded. Your fleet is broken. Leave now. This is your only warning." Heard the message with rage burning in his heart. He wanted to continue fighting. He wanted to destroy every human in the system, but his advisors showed him the numbers. He had lost 40,000 soldiers. He had lost a quarter of his fleet, against a single colony defended by farmers. He ordered the retreat. The survivors were collected from the planet's surface. Their wounded were left behind because they did not care for the weak. They fled into the darkness between stars, carrying with them the taste of defeat. On colony, the survivors emerged from the bunkers. They looked at the ruins of their homes, the bodies of their friends, the blood that stained their streets. They had won, but the cost was terrible. 1,800 defenders had died. 1,800 farmers, teachers, and mechanics who had chosen to fight rather than surrender. Stood among the ruins of the eastern gate. Her leg was wrapped in bloody bandages. Her rifle was empty. She had not slept in 4 days. Admiral found her there. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. He looked at and saw what she had done, what she had lost. "You saved them," he said quietly. "All of them. The civilians, the children. You held the line until we could arrive." Did not smile. "We lost so many." "I know," put a hand on her shoulder. "I know." Far away, Warlord sent a message to the Galactic Council. He told them that the humans had resisted, but only briefly. He told them that his forces had simply decided the colony was not worth the effort. He told them that his suspicions were confirmed. Humans were weak. Humans were cowards. They had fought only because they had no other choice, and their resistance would not last. The Council believed him. High Arbiter made an official announcement. Any species was free to claim human territory without interference from the Council. The humans had proven that they could not defend themselves. Counselor heard the announcement with a sick feeling in her stomach. She had seen the real reports. She knew how many had died, but no one wanted to listen. No one wanted to admit that they might have been wrong about the humans. She went up privately and tried to warn him. "You did not see what I saw," she said. "They fought like nothing I have ever witnessed. They were outnumbered and they still refused to break. This is not weakness. This is something else." Smiled at her. "Dear, always so worried. The failed because they were careless. Nothing more. The humans are prey and prey sometimes bites back. But in the end, prey is always hunted down." He dismissed her with a wave. Returned to her chambers and looked out at the stars. She had lived for 300 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had learned to recognize the signs of coming storms. A storm was coming now. She could feel it. And she feared that, when it arrived, it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The news of colony spread across human space like fire. People watched the footage of ruined streets and crying survivors. They heard the stories of farmers fighting with shovels and tractors against an army of monsters. They saw the names of the dead scrolling across their screens. 1,800 names. 1,800 people who would never come home. The anger came next. In cities across Earth and dozens of colony worlds, people filled the streets. They demanded revenge. They demanded blood. Signs read, "Remember and strike back now." Old soldiers put on their uniforms and volunteered for service. Young people lined up at recruitment centers. Everyone wanted to fight. In the Seoul Unified Defense Center, the leaders of humanity gathered to decide what to do. Admirals sat at a long table with generals, admirals, and government officials. They had been arguing for hours. Some wanted to launch an immediate attack on space. Others wanted to wait and build up their forces. A few wanted to ask the Galactic Council for help. Ambassador Lee stood near the window, watching the crowds in the streets below. He had returned from the council with nothing. No protection, no support, only laughter and dismissal. He felt like a man who had tried to warn someone about a fire, only to be called a fool. General Park slammed his fist on the table. "We have the location of their staging bases. 3 quick strikes and we cripple their ability to attack us again. We have to act now before they recover." Admiral shook his head. "If we strike now, we give the council an excuse to condemn us. They already think we are weak. If we attack without provocation, they will call us savages." Provocation. General Park's face turned red. "They killed our people. They invaded our colony. What more provocation do we need?" The council does not see it that way. They told them it was a minor skirmish. They believe the. Then let us show them the truth. The argument continued. Back and forth, voices rising and falling. Some wanted war, some wanted peace. No one could agree. Finally, a quiet voice cut through the noise. "May I speak?" Everyone turned to look at Doctor. He was an old man with white hair and glasses that sat crookedly on his nose. He was a historian, not a soldier. He had been invited to advise the council on strategy, but so far he had said nothing. Admiral nodded. "Go ahead, Doctor." Stood slowly and walked to the front of the room. A holographic screen flickered to life behind him. "I have spent my life studying human history," he began. "Every war, every conflict, every atrocity we have ever committed against ourselves. And I have come to understand something that I think many of you have forgotten." He pressed a button and images appeared on the screen. Ancient battles, world wars, nuclear explosions, cities burning, mass graves, refugees fleeing in endless streams. "This is what we are," said. "This is what we have always been. We are the species that invented genocide. We are the species that split the atom and immediately used it to vaporize 2 cities. We are the species that fought 2 world wars in a single century, killing hundreds of millions of our own kind." The room was silent. "We did not become peaceful because we are weak," continued. "We became peaceful because we looked at ourselves and we were terrified. We saw the monster in the mirror, and we spent the next 300 years building cages to contain it. Our laws, our treaties, our cultures of peace. These are not signs of weakness. They are chains we forged to bind the beast within us." He looked at each person in the room. "If we go to war now, we break those chains. And once they are broken, they cannot be put back together. The galaxy thinks we are cowards. Let them think it. Let them believe we are harmless. Because the moment they learn the truth, everything changes." General Park frowned. "So we do nothing. We let them attack us and we just accept it." "No," said. "We defend ourselves. We protect our people. We make it clear that attacking us has a cost. But we do not start a war. Not yet. Not until there is no other choice." Admiral had been listening carefully. Now he stood. "Doctor is right. We cannot act from anger. If we strike back now, we become the aggressors. The council will turn against us. Other empires will see us as a threat. We will have enemies on every side." He walked to the window and looked out at the crowds. "I know you want revenge. I want it too. But our duty is not to satisfy our anger. Our duty is to protect our people, and sometimes protection means patience." The room fell quiet. One by one, the generals and officials nodded their agreement. They did not like it. None of them liked it, but they understood. Ambassador Lee returned to the Galactic Council with evidence of the attack. He brought recordings from Colony, testimony from survivors, medical reports documenting the injuries. He presented it all to High Arbiter and requested sanctions against the Empire. Looked at the evidence with bored eyes. This is unfortunate, but we have only your word that events happened as you describe. They have provided their own account, which differs significantly from yours. Their account is a lie, Lee said as calmly as he could. Perhaps, perhaps not. The Council cannot take sides in disputes between species. If you wish to defend yourselves, you are free to do so, but we will not punish the based on accusations alone. Lee felt something cold settle in his chest. You are abandoning us. Smiled, we are remaining neutral. There is a difference. Lee gathered his evidence and left. There was nothing more to say. In the weeks that followed, they attacked again, and again, and again. They struck at mining stations and research outposts. They raided supply convoys and communication relays. Each attack was small, designed to test human defenses without committing to a full invasion. Each attack killed more people. The casualty reports piled up on Admiral's desk. 8,000 dead across a dozen different attacks. 8,000 civilians and soldiers who had trusted their government to protect them. Captain Park came to see him one night. She was young for her rank, with sharp eyes and a mind that could calculate battle odds in seconds. She commanded a squadron of fast attack ships, and she had spent the last month chasing raiders across human space. Admiral, she said, we cannot keep doing this. Looked up from his reports, I know. Every time we defend one colony, they attack another. They are bleeding us slowly, testing us, looking for weaknesses. Hands clenched at her sides. We need to strike back, hit their forward bases, show them that there are consequences. If we do that, we become the aggressor. We are already the victim. What does it matter what the Council thinks? They have made it clear they will not help us. Stood and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. When I was young, he said, I fought in the resource wars on Earth. I saw things that still wake me at night, cities burning, children starving, men and women killing each other over water and food. He paused. We won that war. We united the planet and built something better, but the cost was everything. He turned to face. I swore I would never let that happen again. I swore I would protect people from that kind of destruction. And now I sit here, watching our colonies burn, and I do nothing, because I am afraid of what will happen if I do something. Was quiet for a long moment. You are not doing nothing, Admiral. You are waiting. There is a difference. Is there? Yes, you are waiting for the right moment. The moment when we have no choice, when we can act without becoming what we hate. She stepped closer. I trust you, Admiral. All of us do. When you give the order, we will be ready. Looked at her. In her eyes he saw the same fire that burned in his own heart, the same anger, the same fear. Thank you, Captain, he said softly. Now get some rest. I have a feeling we will need it. Saluted and left. Returned to his desk and looked at the casualty reports. 8,000 dead, and the galaxy watched and did nothing. Counselor had noticed something strange. She had been studying human military movements for months, ever since the attack on Colony. At first, everything seemed normal: defensive repositioning, evacuation of vulnerable populations, nothing aggressive. But there were patterns hidden in the chaos: ships moving to unexpected locations, resources being stockpiled in remote systems, construction projects on dead moons and empty asteroids. She ran the numbers and felt a chill run through her old bones. The humans were not cowering, they were preparing. She tried to warn again. She showed him her analysis. She explained what she believed was happening. He dismissed her concerns with a wave. You see threats everywhere, old friend. The humans are doing what weak species always do. They are hiding, building walls, hoping the storm will pass. He laughed. Let them build their little forts. It will make no difference in the end. Left his chamber in silence. She did not try to warn him again. Whatever was coming, the council would have to face it unprepared. And she feared, deep in her heart, that when it arrived, none of them would be ready. Station floated in the darkness between two star systems. It was not a military base. It was not a strategic target. It was a hospital, a place of healing and hope. 50,000 people lived there. Doctors and nurses who had dedicated their lives to helping others, patients recovering from illness and injury, and refugees, so many refugees, families who had fled the raids and had nowhere else to go. Among them were 12,000 children, orphans whose parents had died defending their homes, children who had seen things no child should ever see. They were brought to station because it was safe, because it was far from the war, because someone had promised them that no one would hurt them again. Sergeant had transferred there 3 months ago. After colony, she could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the people she could not save. The doctors at station had helped her slowly to find peace. Now she worked in security, protecting the people who had protected her. She was in the children's ward when the alarms began to scream. Warlord had grown tired of small raids. The humans refused to break. They kept fighting, kept defending, kept rebuilding. He needed a different kind of victory, not a military victory, a psychological one. He needed to destroy their spirit. His advisors had identified Station as the perfect target. No military value, no defenses, just civilians and children. If the humans would not surrender to strength, perhaps they would surrender to horror. The fleet emerged from faster than light travel and surrounded the station. 40 warships against a hospital that had no weapons at all. Opened a channel. I know you are listening, humans. I know your military forces are monitoring this transmission. Watch closely. See what happens when you defy the Empire. He gave the order. The first missiles struck the outer docking rings. Fire bloomed in the vacuum. Atmosphere rushed out through the breaches, carrying debris and bodies into the void. The station shuddered like a wounded animal. On the medical deck, grabbed a young nurse named and pulled her into the emergency shelter. Get the children, shouted over the alarms. Get them to the core. It is the most protected area. What about you? I am going to buy you time. Ran through the collapsing corridors. Emergency lights flashed red. Smoke filled the air. She passed doctors dragging patients toward shelters. She passed parents carrying children. She passed people who were simply standing still, too shocked to move. She grabbed them, pushed them, screamed at them to run. The boarding parties arrived 10 minutes later. They cut through the station's hull and poured inside like insects invading a nest. They were not here to capture. They were here to kill. Met them at the main junction. She had gathered 11 security officers, all armed with pistols and emergency tools. 11 people against hundreds of warriors. They held the junction for 20 minutes. One by one, people fell. They were not soldiers, they were security guards. They had trained for emergencies, not for war, but they fought anyway. They fought because behind them, children were running for their lives. When the last of her people died, was alone. She had a pistol with 3 bullets left and a knife she had taken from a fallen enemy. Her body was covered in wounds. Blood ran down her face and into her eyes. The commander approached her. He was huge, even by standards. He looked at the pile of bodies around her and laughed. You fought well, little human, better than I expected, but it ends now. Raised her pistol, then come and finish it. 50 light years away, Captain Park received the distress signal. She was patrolling the border with a small squadron of 4 ships, not enough to fight a fleet. not enough to do anything except watch. The signal was confused at first, static and screaming. Then a voice cut through, a child's voice. "Please help us, please, they are everywhere. Mommy told me to hide. Mommy is not moving anymore. Please someone help us, please." Stood frozen on her bridge. Her officers looked at her with pale faces. The signal changed. Now it was voice, broken, desperate. "They are in the children's ward. They are killing everyone. If anyone is listening, please, do not let this be for nothing." Gunfire, screaming, then silence. His hands were shaking. She looked at her tactical display. 40 warships, 4 human patrol ships. The math was clear. If she attacked, she would die. Her crews would die, and it would change nothing. Her orders were clear too. Hold position, do not engage, wait for reinforcements. But the screaming would not stop. Even though the transmission had ended, she could still hear it. The children, the mothers, the people who had been promised safety. She thought of her own family, her sister's children who called her auntie and begged her for stories about space. What would she tell them if she did nothing? How would she explain that she had listened to children die and done nothing? 20 agonizing minutes passed. Then she made her decision. "Helm," she said, her voice steady. "Set course for station, maximum speed." Her first officer turned to her. "Captain, our orders." "I know our orders," looked at him. "I also know that there are 12,000 children on that station. I am not going to sit here while they die." No one argued, no one questioned, they simply obeyed. Squadron hit the fleet like a hammer. 4 small ships against 40 warships. It should have been suicide. It nearly was. But was not trying to win, she was trying to hurt. Her ships screamed into the formation, weapons blazing. They targeted the transports carrying the boarding parties. They struck at command ships and communication relays. They moved so fast that they could barely track them. In 3 minutes, destroyed 2 cruisers and crippled 3 more. She took hits that should have killed her. Her ship was burning, bleeding atmosphere, systems failing one by one. But she had bought time. The commander, shocked by the sudden attack, ordered his boarding parties to withdraw. They retreated to their ships, taking their wounded and leaving their dead. The fleet began to pull back, regrouping to face this unexpected threat. Ship was barely holding together. 2 of her other ships had been destroyed. The third was drifting without power. She ordered the retreat. There was nothing more she could do. When her broken ship limped back to the main fleet, Admiral was waiting. Expected to be arrested, court-martialed, executed perhaps. She had disobeyed direct orders. She had thrown away ships and lives on a hopeless attack. But when she looked at Admiral's face, she saw something she did not expect. He was holding a data pad. She could see the numbers on the screen. The casualty report from station. 47,000 dead. 11,000 children. Was among them. Her body had been found in the children's ward, surrounded by enemy corpses. She had fought to the last breath, protecting children who would never grow up. Looked at, his face was stone. His eyes were empty. "You broke formation," he said quietly. "Yes, sir." "You attacked a superior force." "Yes, sir." "You lost 2 ships and damaged another." "Yes, sir." A long silence stretched between them. Then spoke again. "How many did you save?" "Blinked, sir." "The evacuation ships. They arrived during your attack. While you were distracting the enemy, 3,000 people reached the escape pods. 3,000 people who would have died if you had followed orders." He paused. "How many of them were children?" His voice cracked. "I do not know, sir." 800. Stepped closer. 800 children are alive because you disobeyed orders, because you decided that some things matter more than following rules. He put a hand on her shoulder. She could feel him trembling. "I am not going to punish you, Captain. I am going to promote you, because what you did today is exactly what we are going to need in the days ahead." He turned away from her and walked to the communications panel. His hand hovered over the controls. 47,000 people, he said, almost to himself. 11,000 children. They killed children. They killed them because they thought it would break us. He pressed the button and opened a channel to Earth Command. This is Admiral Authorization Code Omega. The line has been crossed. Repeat, the line has been crossed. God forgive us for what comes next. He closed the channel and looked at. Get your ship repaired. Gather your crews. Tell them to rest while they can. His voice was cold now, cold and hard like steel. We are going to war. Saluted, yes, Admiral. She turned to leave. At the door she stopped. Admiral, what happens now? Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there they were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They were wrong. Now, said, we show them why they should have been afraid. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. From hidden shipyards on dead moons and empty asteroids, the human fleet emerged. Not the small defense force that the galaxy had observed. Not the token patrols and scattered escorts that they had learned to expect. 4,000 warships. They appeared across a dozen systems simultaneously, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. They were smaller than vessels, sleeker, built for speed and precision rather than brute force. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, marked only with simple numbers and the flag of United Earth. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Resolve, the flagship of the human fleet. Captain Park stood beside him, now wearing the insignia of a newly promoted admiral herself. Around them, officers worked in focused silence. There was no celebration, no excitement, only grim determination. Opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral, you all know why we are here. You all know what was done to our people, to our children. His voice was steady, but underneath it burned something cold and terrible. We did not want this war. We tried every other path. We asked for peace. We asked for protection. We were laughed at. We were attacked. We were massacred. He paused. No more. From this moment forward, we are no longer defending. We are attacking. We will strike the empire at its heart. We will destroy their ability to make war. And we will make certain that no one ever believes humans are weak again. He closed the channel and turned to. Give the order. The human fleet moved like a single organism. In the first 24 hours, they destroyed every military base in 3 sectors. In the first week, they had pushed deep into enemy territory, securing supply lines and cutting communications. They were shocked. Their intelligence had told them humanity had only a few hundred ships. Their commanders had assured them that humans would never launch an offensive. Their warlords had promised that this soft, peaceful species would crumble at the first sign of real war. They were wrong about all of it. Warlord mobilized his forces. He gathered every ship, every soldier, every weapon his empire possessed. He would crush these insects. He would burn their worlds and scatter their ashes across the void. He would make them pay for daring to challenge supremacy. The 2 fleets met at the Battle of Prime, a massive space station that served as the military headquarters for the entire region. 600 warships against 800 human vessels. They attacked with their traditional tactics, mass formations, overwhelming firepower, straight charges designed to crush the enemy through sheer force. The humans did not fight that way. Admiral had studied every battle in recorded history. He knew their tactics, he knew their weaknesses, and he had spent years developing strategies to exploit them. The human fleet split into dozens of smaller groups. They struck from unexpected angles, targeting weapons systems and engines rather than hulls. They used the station's own debris field as cover. They lured ships into traps and picked them off one by one. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 400 ships had been destroyed. Humanity had lost 90. Prime fell. The survivors fled deeper into their territory. Admiral led the ground assault on the station. Her Marines moved through the corridors with cold efficiency. They did not torture. They did not desecrate. They simply eliminated every threat with mechanical precision. They had never faced an enemy like this. Their previous conquests had been against species that fought with passion, with rage, with the desperate fury of cornered animals. The humans fought differently. They fought like machines, like mathematics made flesh. There was no anger in their eyes, no hatred, only focus, only purpose. And somehow, that was far more terrifying. The campaign continued. Week after week, the human fleet pushed deeper into space. They captured or destroyed 12 major bases. They liberated 4 worlds that they had conquered centuries ago. They cut supply lines and communication networks, isolating forces and destroying them in detail. Doctor accompanied the fleet as a historian and advisor. He recorded everything: the battles, the strategies, the faces of soldiers who had never expected to fight a war like this. One night, he sat with Admiral in the observation deck of the Resolve. "How are you feeling?" asked. Stared out at the stars. "I do not feel anything. That is what worries me." "What do you mean?" "Before station I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if we went to war. Afraid of what we would become." Shook his head. "Now I feel nothing. I give orders that kill thousands and I feel nothing. I watch our ships destroy enemy bases and I feel nothing." He turned to look at. "Is this what we were always afraid of? This emptiness?" Was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps, or perhaps it is what allows us to do what must be done. A sword does not feel guilt for cutting, it simply cuts." "And what happens when the war is over? Do we stay swords forever?" "That," said softly, "is the question every soldier has asked since the beginning of time. I do not have an answer. I only know that we must try to remain human, even while doing inhuman things." 6 weeks after the war began, the human fleet reached the. It was a massive planet, dark and volcanic, surrounded by rings of orbital defenses and station platforms. The entire military had gathered there for a final stand. 3,000 warships, 20 million soldiers, everything they had left. Warlord stood on his command platform and watched the human fleet approach. He had lost half his empire in 6 weeks. Half. In 2 centuries of conquest, he had never suffered a defeat. Now he had suffered dozens. But he was not broken. Not yet. He still believed that his superior numbers would carry the day. He still believed that humans were soft, that they would flinch at the prospect of true bloodshed. Admiral sent him a message. "Warlord, this is Admiral of the United Earth Fleet. Your empire has fallen. Your forces are surrounded. Surrender now and we will spare your civilian population. Continue fighting and we will destroy everything." Laughed when he received the message. He sent back a single word: never. The battle for the lasted 4 hours. Admiral led the assault on the orbital defenses. Her ships punched through the outer ring in 30 minutes. The defensive grid that had taken centuries to build fell in 4 hours. The ground assault followed. Human Marines descended to the surface in armored dropships. They faced warriors fighting for their homes, their families, their very existence. It did not matter. The humans had developed new weapons, kinetic bombardment platforms that could strike with pinpoint accuracy from orbit, imp weapons that disabled technology, powered combat armor that made every Marine worth 10 regular soldiers. The capital fell in 3 days. Warlord was captured alive. Admiral had given specific orders. He was to be taken, not killed. There was a purpose for him yet. When the fighting ended, the empire existed only in name. Its fleets were destroyed. Its bases were in human hands. It was occupied. In 6 weeks, humanity had conquered an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 200 years. Admiral walked through the ruins of the capital. Around him, human soldiers were organizing relief efforts, medical supplies for wounded civilians, food for the starving, shelter for the displaced. Walked beside him, we won. Yes, it does not feel like victory. No, it never does. Stopped and looked up at the dark sky. War is not about victory, it is about ending. We did not fight to conquer, we fought to make it stop. He turned to her. They killed our children because they thought it would break us. Instead, it broke them. In 6 weeks, we destroyed everything they built over 2 centuries. He shook his head. This is why we were afraid. This is why we built all those monuments and sang all those songs about peace. Because we knew deep down what we were capable of. Said nothing, there was nothing to say. The next day was brought before Admiral. The once proud warlord was bound in chains, his scales cracked and dull, his eyes empty. Did not execute him. Instead, he gave a ship, a single transport barely functional. He filled it with recordings, footage of every battle, every destroyed base, every fallen fortress. And he added one more thing, the names of every child who had died at station. Go, said, tell the galaxy what you saw, tell them what you woke when you killed our children, tell them that humans fear war, and tell them why. Looked at him with broken eyes. Why not just kill me? Because death would be mercy. Living with what you have done is the punishment you deserve. Stepped closer. You thought you understood war. You thought it was about strength and conquest. But real war, the kind humans learn to fight on our, is not about winning. It is about making the enemy lose so completely that they can never threaten you again. He turned away. Now go, and pray that we never have to do this again. Left. The Galactic Council received his report with horror. They had expected brutality. What they heard was something worse, something that made them question everything they had believed about the humans. Efficiency, precision, a complete dismantling of an empire in 6 weeks. And through it all, not a single atrocity, not a single massacre of civilians, not a single act of cruelty beyond what was necessary to win. The humans had not fought like monsters. They had fought like surgeons removing a cancer, cutting away the disease with cold, precise strokes. That somehow was the most terrifying thing of all.